So what made you want to be an actor?
What made me, I think, is just really, once he got into it, it's like really enjoying being able to be a part of, I think, his stories, right? And telling good stories and being able to help people get stories out. But also, I guess, I think representation is a big part of it too, right? I think as we were talking about earlier on the call, like just growing up and, either seeing or not being able to see yourself in media or what you wanted to see, or people that, look like you or come from your background. And it's like wanting to just at least kind of put yourself out there and make stories that can kind of come to life and maybe people can relate to.
So is it a big part of the acting for you that you imagine 5-year-old yous out there seeing you and go, oh wow, I can do anything? Or what was it?
I
What
don't.
was it? What was it? A kid that you felt you lacked by not seeing that representation? Like, how did it hold you back, or how would it have been different if you'd had that?
I don't know, but I think as a kid, I was born in '94, right? So back then it wasn't that much, right? I think things have gotten a lot better. Back then it was like everyone's like, "Oh, I want to fight you," because they think you know kung fu or something, because that's kind of all that they saw. And especially if you grew up in an area without that much diversity and stuff, right? But I don't really imagine or want to, say that I want to have other people looking up at that or looking at me like that. But I think it's just being able to, I don't know how to say it, but just tell stories, right? I don't really think too far about other people, looking at me and stuff. But I think just being able to put yourself out there, and even because I think another part of acting, like when I first started taking classes, I was like, okay, this will be helpful for my job in general, right? Because I was doing research and we have to talk to a lot of clients and make presentations and stuff, and just it will be a lot of good, interesting skills to learn, and just not be self-conscious as well, right? Being able to how do you say it again, like improv or think on your feet more quickly. So that was cool too, but I think it's just a lot of the things that you learn with it as well.
And what attracted you to San Francisco Bay, the script of San Francisco Bay specifically?
I think the script, I think I could kind of relate, right? We're all growing up in this kind of regimented lifestyle, like things that we think we should be doing, or things that, I think the whole, going from, elementary school, middle school, high school, is not a lot of opportunities for people to really figure out like what they want to do. You could kind of like after high school, you're like, okay, military, technical school, jobs, college, right? But it's not a lot of opportunities to figure out what you want to do. And a lot of times things feel regimented. And so I think the script really is about like, okay, how do you figure out what you like to do, right? And kind of pursue it, whether you actually want to pursue it full time or just to the side, right? I think, you can have a job, to pay the bills and stuff like that. But, I think there's a lot of things, like, I don't know who was like playing piano down there, but they were amazing, right? But like, it's just a lot of ways for people to really express themselves through different forms of art or other areas. And I think it's just important to really be able to do that.
And when you look at your life now, do you kind of what parts of your life do you draw on when you're in roles and when you're acting? There's certain parts of your life that you draw on that you can see. Oh yeah, kind of makes sense that I went through that. It's enabled me to be a better actor.
Yeah, I think less so. I don't know if it's parts of my life. I try to draw a lot on like relationships. People are like, okay, what kind of relationships have I had with either my family, friends, or just past, girlfriends, whatever, right? It's like, in terms of experiences, maybe like just maybe past like hopes, dreams, or past times you felt really even defeated, things like that. So I think those are probably the things that I try to draw on.
And in the short time I've known you, you definitely. Let's ask you first of all, like what got you into acting? What was that pivotal moment? Like what kind of took you into that?
Yeah, I didn't actually plan to get into it at all. So like, every time like, even every callback or every opportunity, I think is a blessing, right? Just being able to learn and meet so many amazing folks. But what got in was, so I didn't go to school for acting. I didn't act in high school, no theater or anything like that. But I was playing basketball. This was when I started working, right, shortly after. There's an outdoor tournament in DC, and it was very competitive, people watching and all of that. And so this guy that was really aggressive, right, and he was getting upset because I was like stealing it from him and whatever. And then so he just had the ball one time and I was on him, and he was much bigger than me, right? But the crowd was kind of cheering him on too. They were like, hey, you got like $1.75 on him, like take him on, right? And so I was like, okay, whatever. But so then he just came and like just, I guess he got upset and kind of just had the ball and just shoulder charged me. And then I was trying to stand my ground, but my foot got caught on a teammate trying to set a screen for him. And then so then he landed on me, and then he landed on my leg. It bent like a weird way. And at that time, like it just, whatever. But fast forward, right? Recovery takes a long time. And I didn't have much to do during recovery because after work, it was usually just, work out, play ball, whatever. So then I was like, okay, let me find something else to learn, right? That was when I got my first guitar. It was like 2018, I think, something like 2018, 2019. I got my first guitar, did that, and then my friend was actually pursuing acting at the time in Atlanta. And he was like, okay, he was taking classes and was like, you might as well take some classes. So I looked at some classes in DC. I went there with my crutches on the metro and all that. So I started taking it, and it was cool, just, again, meeting a lot of cool people. The teachers were great, and I was learning a lot of stuff. And at first it was, it's still hard, right, to get out of your comfort zone and just not be self-conscious about what you're doing. But, learning on, I was like, this is some really cool stuff that you don't really think about if you didn't know, right, just going on to day-to-day life. A lot of things you just don't really think about, whether it's like the consciousness or how you talk, how you portray yourself, right, or how you try to get something from people. So I think one of the things one of my teachers said that kind of was interesting to me. He was like, a lot of people think acting is like, putting a mask on or something, but then he said acting is more of you're taking the mask off, right? Because a lot of times when we're going through day-to-day life, whether it's with our boss, partners, friends, whatever, we're kind of masking our true emotions or how we want to express ourselves. So, it was cool, but then it came to another class, and then the teacher was like, at this point, excuse me, you might as well try to get some experience, right? So then I was like, okay, I got my headshot, whatever, and just started putting myself out there and submitting myself. And I remember my first gig was also in 2019, so not too long ago, but it was just doing like a training video, right? So I still remember that. That's the first thing I did, and then just kept submitting myself and trying to get more experience, met a bunch of cool people, got connections, and it's cool.
So it's almost like for you, the acting came first as like the gateway to self-awareness and understanding yourself and growing as a person, or you're always kind of into that stuff?
That's actually a good question because the self-awareness part I think is important, right? Now that you mention it, I don't know what came first because, let me try to think. Because something I'm trying to be more consistent about is like, in terms of like meditation, right? Just being more in the moment, appreciative and all of that. And I'm not sure if acting got me into that, but I know that they're kind of related, right? Because meditation is also, and acting is also about being in the moment, reacting and listening. I'm not sure which one got me into the other, but I think it did help.
Yeah. And from what I've just, in the short time I've known you, you're quite a resilient, almost like whatever it takes, without treading on people, just this, whatever it takes, focus, I'm going to give it my all. Have you always been like that? Has it always been part of your personality?
That, I think so. It's like, if I have my mind on something, I would do it, right? I think back then, like high school, like joining like, sports teams, soccer teams, whatever. It's like if I had a goal, same thing with like, working out, if I have a goal, I will push myself. But I feel like to me, it's a lot easier to do with the physical stuff just because working out, right? I could, after work, work out no matter what hour it is, right? Sometimes it'd be late or whatever, but you have to get it done. But that's physical stuff, right? That's just really putting yourself there and being there, showing up. I think with a lot of other stuff, like like even acting, I think it's hard because that's, you know, like lifting, I can go to the gym or running track or whatever, go put the time in and you get better, right? You see results, you make sure you're on the right program, of course, and do your research. But stuff like acting or musical instruments, a lot of that stuff is there's so much non-physical things behind it. I mean, there is non-physical things behind working out, but
Yeah.
you get my point too, right? But that it's a bit harder for me, but I think right now I'm still in the moment of trying to push myself in that aspect.
Like if you could go back and tell you at the beginning of your acting career, if you could go back now and tell him some choice words that really help you find it easier, what would that be?
I don't know if I could. I think it's always gonna be hard. Cause for me, especially even after every scene, right, even the ones we did, after the scene, after the cut, and we've already moved on, it's always easy to be critical of yourself, right? I'm thinking to myself, I'm running through the lines again, and I'm like, oh, I should have done. And I did this after our auditions too, right? I'm like, after we hung up on Zoom, I'm like, man, I should have done it a different way, right? I could have done it better this way, and I don't know. I don't know if that's a healthy mindset or something, but you know, because obviously you should be looking forward, right? I should be thinking about the next lines and how I should be carrying that. But I think it's really just something I need to tell myself to keep working on is really just stop holding yourself back, right? I think that's what my singing teacher says as well. It's like, honestly, a lot of times your biggest enemy is just yourself. And a lot of times I feel like I hold myself back. You know, I made good friends at my old apartment with this guy. He was a neuroscientist, right? He was studying neuroscience, getting his PhD at Georgetown there. And we were talking a lot, you know, we met in the gym. And he was saying a lot about how, like, you know, like the human brain it's our biggest strength, right? But a lot of times it's also our biggest enemy because we hold ourselves back through various ways, whether it's through anxiety or just, you know, the self-consciousness aspect. So I think it's really just how do I get past that? Whether it's through acting, through singing, sports as well, right? Like even playing basketball, confidence is a lot of how well you do, regardless if it's in, you know, league pickup, and you see that in the NBA with professional athletes, right? Some people can turn it on, some people can't. And I think that's a big part of me trying to figure out I think that's my biggest hurdle on trying to get over that.
I think the constant reanalysis and analyzing. I think on some level it's healthy because you're always improving. But I think it's when you put yourself down. Do you know what I mean? It's the tonality. You can go, okay, oh, how do I do that again? Or fuck. Duh. Do you know what I mean? There's like a difference in the way you speak to yourself, you know. But I think on some level, everyone I've ever met who's successful has a level of analyzing and going, okay, how could I have done that better, or how could I have improved, and moving forward, as well as a healthy level of, okay, I'm in gratitude for where I'm at and what's going on, and this is where I'm going, you know. And there's like all three being connected to on some level. You know?
Yeah, I think that's a big part. But it's also like, okay, now that you know it, can I take that and actually change the next time, right? Like if I knew my problem in the last game was like, okay, I wasn't confident enough to shoot. You know, I didn't shoot enough. I didn't drive enough. The next game, even though I know that, can I get past that and take myself to the next level? So I think that's the barrier, right? Like knowing versus being able to put it. And I'm not sure what the solution is yet. You know, a lot of times it's just more repetition, right? Putting yourself in that moment, because they say that, like, you know, if you're not at that level yet, even getting above your comfort level or something will feel weird, right? And it'll feel like you're different, but that's the only way you get there. So I don't know.
Just keep doing that. Nice. And as an actor, are there any little techniques, even like learning lines or anything, like any little things that you do to like get yourself in state or get yourself in the zone or help you learn your lines? Any little things that you've picked up on the way?
I think this script was pretty long, so there was some techniques I did to try to learn my lines. One was, and I was trying to do research as well, what other people do. And it's like, one thing is, like I said, for your script, especially if you have a long monologue, like one thing is you try to jot down like the first letter of each word. But something is also like, they said it's more about the story, right? So like, what are you trying to do? If you know more about what you're trying to do, what has happened, then you pretty much know the gist of what you're going to say anyways, and that helps you bring it out. Another thing I've kind of done, which is funny as well, you might notice sometimes, like, and my singing coach pointed this as well, right? Like, I don't speak that clearly sometimes. I'm kind of mumbling over my words or speaking too fast, and one of my old acting coaches was like, put like a chopstick or something and just bite on that, right? While you're trying to go over your lines and talk, and that'll help you enunciate better. So done that sometimes, not the most comfortable or sanitary, but you know. But no, I think in terms of warming up, I always think back to what my first acting teacher told me. His name was George Grant, right? But he is a lot of getting the tension out of your body. So like the stretches you do really decompress your spine, because a lot of your tension, he said, is in your spine and also in the spinal cord in the back of the neck. So he's taught us a lot of workouts, not workouts, but stretching and movements to really just decompress that part. So then you can, because it's like if you let your physical body kind of loose, it's easier to let your emotional body loose as well. So I try to do stuff like that.
Nice, nice. And in terms of moving forward with San Francisco Bay, like the character itself, like what does the character Alex mean to you? Like what is your connection to character? What do you feel this character's about?
Yeah, I think the character and stuff, I think we talked about this before too, right? But really, it's just, like you said, like just being comfortable with who you are and who you want to be, right? I think it's a lot of times we, and not just me, but like, you know, talk with my friends as well. It's like we're kind of afraid to do things, either because we don't know what's going to happen, right? Fear of uncertainty, which is always going to be there, or fear of disappointing others, right? How they might think of us, or even disappointing ourselves, right? But I think you really, a lot of times you just have to put yourself out there and try. Like I love trying new things and learning new things, right? And it's just, you don't know, you don't know how it might be until you try. And I think life is, you know, I guess life is both long and short, right? We have a lot of time, but we also don't at the same time to do all we want. So you have to, you know, you have to do what you want sometimes. Yeah.